And better for Governor Andrew Cuomo when it comes to his poll numbers. His job approval rating is flying quite high, according to a new Quinnipiac University poll. His job approval is now at 64%, with only 19% of New Yorkers saying that he's not doing a good job as governor. Quinnipiac notes that the last time we saw a rating this high from a governor was back in 2002, when George Pataki, a Republican, mind you, enjoyed a 66 to 18% rating. The governor's approval rating has also stayed strong among Catholics, despite his push for same-sex marriage and its final passage by the legislature last week. According to Quinnipiac, 62% think he is doing a good job, and only 22% of Catholics, this is now, disapprove of his performance. Joining me to break all of this down is Quinnipiac pollster Mickey Carroll. Mickey, it's good to see you.
Liz, nice to be back.
We should actually note also that he is the most popular governor in the nation at this moment, Governor Cuomo.
Well, maybe there's somebody popular out in, I don't know, Nevada or something.
Well, right, among the people that
Quinnipiac polls, yeah. Right. It's been a bad run for governors, but not Andrew Cuomo. Now, part of that, Liz, let's face it, is the calendar. New York with the fiscal year starting April 1st, they get the budget out of the way. The other governors, Christie in New Jersey in particular, is having a bang, 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 bang week.
Sure, his numbers are not fantastic, 44, 47.
Well, he's a Republican in a Democratic state. That's what I mean.
So was George Pataki in 2002 when his numbers were so high.
That was prehistoric.
Well, but actually, though, it's worth noting, and maybe others might not remember this, but I remember quite clearly, since I was on the campaign trail then, at the time that this was happening, when George Pataki's numbers were so high, you know who was running against him?
I don't remember.
Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, wow.
Yes, 2002.
Andrew Cuomo, the failed candidate, messing up.
Yeah.
Never again would he succeed in any. Oh, yes, you're right. You went out with him to Buffalo that time.
Dropped out of the primary 1 week before.
I mean, you told me you went. I think you went with him, as I recall. You and I talked about this.
Yeah.
You went to Buffalo. He spoke, or he popped off, screwed up his, his political career was over.
He was dead. Phoenix, like you've never seen, right? I mean, who knew that this guy would be?
Well,
so
so Liz, you don't like to psychoanalyze. We're not in that business. We're in politics, but still. To really take a beating and then work your way back, that can be a broadening experience, presumably it has been for Andrew Cuomo.
And it teaches you discipline. I mean, the moment that you are speaking of is when he said actually that Governor Pataki was not a leader post 9/11, that he had held the leader's coat.
Right.
Speaking of Rudy Giuliani, and that just, wow, that was.
Well, not
really
only that, but if this time around, look, Andrew Cuomo, 64 to 19 in the current Quinnipiac numbers, a tremendously successful, legislative session.
Yeah.
But also, and you and I, who have been covering this stuff for a couple of years, noticed Andrew Cuomo did not pop off at all.
No.
Ever.
Oh, no.
He is a disciplined person.
Yeah.
Which he wasn't always.
No, and you know what? Those Catholic numbers are quite interesting because the Catholics, white Catholics in particular, can be a swing.
They can, but I'll tell you, Liz, it was my impression on the gay marriage thing. Now, remember when Quinnipiac polled where do people, Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, Catholics 48-48 on gay marriage, even up. It was my impression, and you would know this from being here day after day watching it develop, that the Catholic hierarchy didn't really go all out on this one.
The evangelicals did.
Yeah, okay, but there weren't all that many of them. I mean, there's a lot of Catholics in New York.
They're quite loud. The religious right, if you will. I mean, the National Organization for Marriage, New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedoms. Not the Archbishop, if that's what you're saying. He was certainly not.
Talk about Catholics in New York. Catholics are the big number in New York, and they went through the motions, but there was none of the intensive lobbying, the prayer sessions, the sermons, all that stuff. I got the impression that the new Archbishop of New York, Irish Catholic, might be an Irish Catholic politician who can count. And they thought that, well, seriously, that's part of the job, to see how things are going. And, okay, they didn't really go hammer and tongs against it. Maybe they did. I don't think so.
No, what is also particularly interesting here is that despite the fact that the budget and the fiscal policies of this particular governor are quite conservative, his push for gay marriage helped temper that because most New York State voters say he's more liberal than conservative.
Absolutely. Now, look, let's give Andrew Cuomo credit for sincerity of belief. Okay, let's say he is honestly, genuinely for gay marriage. We'll credit that.
Oh, I think he
But, okay, well, whether he is or he isn't, we'll credit that. Let's say that as the beginning. But the political calculation of, geez, a little conservative, geez, a little tough on labor, gee, and then all of a sudden he pleases all the super liberals by pushing hard and successfully for gay marriage.
Former Assemblyman Richard Brodsky yesterday called him a cannibaral. Cannibaral? I don't know. He's trying to coin some new phrase. My argument was this is not terribly new. Fiscally conservative, socially progressive is actually, I think, where many New Yorkers, quite clearly from your point, are standing, and perhaps even people nationally. And now, it's interesting also because there have been people who, on the left, have suggested that Andrew Cuomo is not his father's son sufficiently, but apparently because liberal icon, as you term him, Mario Cuomo, was very pro-labor, was very progressive.
Matt Bai, who's a good reporter, good writer, had a piece had a magazine piece in the New York Times a month or two ago, which was a long interview with Mario Cuomo.
I remember.
And you could tell all during it he kept wanting to get Mario Cuomo to say, Andrew's not liberal, Andrew's not liberal.
Talk about discipline. Mario Cuomo
hey, listen,
debate on that.
Not only that family they're a close family, and they're a terrifically good family.
Yes,
look at Matilda Cuomo, she's probably a better politician than her husband or her son. And I mean in a good sense.
But let's talk about the legislature here did not actually get a bounce. I mean, the governor went out of his way to praise lawmakers for doing what he wanted them to do. And overall, voters continue to disapprove, 62-26 of the legislature, although individual lawmakers continue to be popular within their own district.
Liz, I think that's fairly standard, that people read all this stuff, dysfunctional legislature. They see you people reporting day in and day out about how you folks, whoever you guys are.
You media, you mass media.
About, the bad things about the legislature. So people come away with the impression that it's not a particularly good body. But the people they elect, the assembly members, the senators, the people they voted for, they sort of like.
Well, and also let's say that the governor could not have gotten anything done had the legislature not agreed to pass his agenda for whatever reason that they did, right? For very many mixed reasons, political, because they're scared of him, because they agree with him, whatever it is.
Right.
He couldn't have gotten it done without them.
And you know, it's funny, Liz, that you do all these analyses and so forth, but the basic point is what happened at the end. And what happened at the end was they passed the damn thing. They passed everything they wanted.
Let's also briefly talk about President Barack Obama. I mean, by contrast, not doing terribly well, 57-38 compared to 60-35 just on June 1st. You know, there's a lot of talk, and there's been some comparison in the leadership styles of Barack Obama versus Andrew Cuomo, particularly when it comes to same-sex marriage. The president took a pass on taking a position.
Well, let's say that that's a sincere belief. Look, the Quinnipiac numbers showed that the only demographic group that was opposed to gay marriage in New York was the 65 and over. Now, Obama's not up there yet, but the older you get, the less likely you are.
True.
But the other thing is, and I've talked to people, friends of mine, who don't like gay marriage, they think it's a bad thing. I've told them, forget it. It's inevitable. Look at the demographics. 70% of under 35s are for it.
Yeah, and one might argue probably better to just get it off the table and be done with it from a political standpoint, because if you're right that inevitably it's going to be happening.
So why stand against the tide? It's just not worth the trouble. And that's where, once again, I come back to my judgment, my guess, that the Archbishop might be an Irish Catholic politician who can count.
Well, we've seen him here, and he is quite a pragmatic and political guy.
That's what I mean. He can count votes. Tip O'Neill was right. All politics is local. Count them.
I want to thank you very much, Mickey, for coming by. It's always fun to talk to you.
Oh, it's always fun to be here, Liz. Thanks.